Welcome to another episode of Life and Whiskey. This is video number 4 in our Budget Whiskey series. And as always, I'm Jordan. And we're going to start today with early times. Now, I was going to do just all bourbons. And technically, early times is not a bourbon. It's a Kentucky whiskey. And it is, as I'm reading from the label here, distilled and bottled by Early Times Distillery Company in Louisville, Kentucky. For more than 140 years, people have turned to Early Times for consistently high quality and smooth taste. Matured at least 36 months in reused cooperage. So what that means is it's aged for at least 3 years, so there's your age statement, in reused cooperage, which means it's in used oak barrels. So because of that, it cannot get the designation of bourbon, and therefore it is just called Kentucky whiskey, not bourbon. So let's get into early times as whiskey number 1 in this video. So I was able to pick up Early Times for $8.99 at our local liquor store. And here's what we got. So all the marketing that's on that label is talking about smoothness and flavor and all that good jazz, but on the nose, it's kind of bright and shiny. Very floral once you get into it quite a bit. You know, almost has that light apple, honey floral thing going on. I don't get any oak or anything else. It's just bright and shiny and floral are the dominant. That's the dominant nose notes that I get out of this. So I'll just leave it at that. So the flavor is pretty interesting. It's really, really thin for starters. Thin and watery. You get a brown sugar that moves into this light oak spice and floral kind of combination going together. And it's just a really light and easy flavor profile. I mean, it's pretty thin. And for $8.99, I'm probably going to lean towards some, like the Old Crow from the last video for $8.59. I'd probably pick that up because it's more complex. But it's not a bad whiskey by any stretch of the imagination. It's an easy drinker. It'd be a great mixer. Nothing too ordinary. It's living in the home of bourbon, even though technically it's not a bourbon, but it's thin. And on the finish, you just get a very light oak and a little bit of pepper spice to it. So I'm going to say that Early Times is not, definitely not the whiskey I'm reaching for. It just doesn't offer anything interesting that any of the other whiskeys wouldn't bring with more emphasis behind it. So we're going to set that aside. Next, we have Ancient Age. Okay, so Ancient Age is distilled by the Buffalo Trace Distillery, and it's mash bill number 2. And let's see, is there an age statement on here? It's a Kentucky straight bourbon, for starters. Sorry about the long pause here, but I'm trying to read through this quick. Here we go. Right on the neck of the bottle here, right here, is where the age statement is. It says aged at least 36 months. So it's a straight bourbon, which means that it's straight bourbon to get that designation is 2 years. To get an NAS or a non-age statement whiskey means you got to have it for at least 4 years, and because this is less than that, they have to put the age on the bottle, so 36 months, or at least 36 months. You might get some older barrels that are mixed into it, but you won't have any that are less than 36. So, here we go. Made by Buffalo Trace. Woo! Okay, so straight out of the gate, it is very sweet. It smells like Halloween candy corn. You get there's a little bit of a floral undertone to it. With a little bit of apple in there. Now, this is not the same mash bill as the flagship Buffalo Trace whiskey, but it smells very, very close to it. And it also, like, Four Roses kind of comes into that same set of notes on the nose. So we're living in pretty good territory as far as bourbon goes, and it was only $9.09 for the Ancient Age. So, going in for the taste. Okay, so I'm coming off the heels of a pretty thin whiskey. I'm getting a little bit more alcohol in there, but it's still very, very sweet. It matches the nose pretty well, so I get that sweet candy corn flavor really comes through. I mean, it tastes like you're eating some candy corn a bit. It's smooth and rounded. There's nothing real punchy in it, even though there's that little bit of alcohol spice in there. But it's just caramel and sweet. Almost no oak at all. And it's a very sugary sweetness in there. The finish kind of brightens up a little bit. It's kind of fresher and sweet. It's rounded. So again, none of the notes in the finish are spiky and are coming out very drastically. It's just kind of mellow and clean, and it's short on the finish. So it's just a light, sweet finish with the slightest bit of a peppery, ethanol-y bite to it. But that is like, that heat just kind of comes and goes almost instantaneous. It's almost not worth talking about as part of the finish. So there you go. Ancient Age, I'm going to say out of the three that we drink today, that's probably going to be my go-to on it. It's very similar to Buffalo Trace. Just out of these particular profiles that we're going to be talking about, I tend not to be a sweet emphasis person when it comes to bourbon or whiskey for that matter. But these particular ones, this one kind of has a well-rounded flavor profile, even though it does lean into that sweet a bit. But for $9.09, it's pretty manageable as far as budget goes, and I think that if you did a head-to-head with the Buffalo Trace and this one, without a blind taste test, if you did a blind taste test head-to-head, I think you'd be pretty surprised where they fell out. So for half the price, Ancient Age might be the way that I go. So might be something to check out and look into as far as a budget whiskey goes. One last taste just for good measure, because, you know, it's a Monday, why not? So, interesting weather we've been having here. I'm sure it's been pretty interesting where everybody else lives as well. The other day, was out looking for sheds, 70 degrees, life was great. Next day, temperature drops. We got 6 inches of snow. They were calling for 6 to 12 inches. And this morning when I woke up, the temperature was 10 degrees. So, love spring weather. You know, huge temperature fluxes. All last week it was in the 60s, 70s, hot, sunny. I wasn't prepared for it. I'm not a hot weather person. I like the cold. I like the snow. I think the world looks a lot nicer when it's covered with snow than when it's all green and hot. My allergies kick up in the spring. I'm not a big fan of any of that kind of crap. So it was quite awesome to get a nice layer of snow. I'm not a big fan of shoveling it and all the snow that's out there, but you know, we all gotta get some exercise somewhere along the way, so really, is it all that bad? I don't think so. Plus, kind of keeps those snakes away for a little bit longer. Every time I go out running the dog, it's nice to be out when it's cold or when there's snow on the ground and the rattlers are kind of still denned up and not hanging out just anywhere out in the field. That way the dog can go out there, run free, burn off that energy. We can run for 5 or 6 hours and not have to worry about it. Although today I did just go to the vet with her. She got a rattlesnake vaccine and her kennel cough, so we're good to go for if we need to kennel her at all. Okay, back to whiskey. Last one we got here is Ezra Brooks 90 proof. Okay, we picked this up for $9.79. It's a Kentucky straight bourbon whiskey. It's a sour mash recipe, and it is 90 proof. This is the only 90 proof under $10 I was able to find. So it's at 45% ABV. It also has a real cork, so we get that lovely sound. Pour ourselves a little bit of this. Let me look and see if I can get an age statement on here quick. So I'm sorry these videos have a lot of dead air space in them, but you know, it's not the worst thing in the world not to have to listen to me talk the entire time. Alright, so unless I'm missing it, which is highly possible, I do not see an age statement on here. And if this is truly an NAS, that means it is at least 4 years old. So the youngest it's an NAS, so it's a 90 proof NAS. So the youngest barrels that are able to go into the mix when they put it into the bottle is 4 years old. So it is a Kentucky straight bourbon whiskey that is a sour mash recipe, and it is also charcoal filtered. So it's kind of leaning towards the Jack Daniels, even though that is a Tennessee whiskey, which is just a bourbon that uses the Lincoln County process and is in Tennessee. This is a Kentucky bourbon that basically uses the same process, only in Kentucky, and I'm not sure whether or not they're using maple for the charcoal, but they very well could. So, Ezra Brooks, 90 proof, $9.79. For a 90 proof whiskey, it sits pretty well. On the nose, you get, this is definitely the most complex bourbon-esque whiskey out of all of these budget bourbons that we've done, meaning that it has that corn dust and oak, a little bit of tannin and cherry in there. On the very tail end of the nose profile, you pick up some apple and floral notes. But it doesn't smell overly sweet, and it doesn't smell overly thin. Now, 80 proof, 90 proof, those are still on the low end. 90 proof's, you know, a step up, but it's not, you know, cask strength or anything like that. I'd say the corn dust and cherry are dominating the nose. Going in for the taste. On the taste, it is corn dust and caramel forward, not candied. In fact, the corn dust kind of dominates the entire flavor profile. So for every note that I taste, it is quickly followed with a corn dust note right behind it. So I get like a caramel and then some corn dust, and then oak and then some corn dust. So it has a lot more oak in the flavor profile than any of the other whiskeys so far. But it's smooth and it's rounded. Nothing's very spiky. You can definitely get the alcohol burn in your throat on the finish. And a little bit more of the black pepper barrel spice note towards the finish. But it's very complementary to the sweet notes that are in there. Unlike the Ancient Age or some of the other whiskeys we've had, it does not have that candied sweetness to it. It is a sweet, like a caramel sweet, but it's not candied. It's not super sugary. It's just a very nice, easy drinking 90 proof whiskey. And on that finish, the finish comes off this oily, clingy, rounded caramel into a nice light oak that's underlain with some sweet notes to it. Very well balanced. It does have some heat to it in the throat and as you're swallowing it from that 90 proof, but it's definitely not overbearing by any stretch. It's very nice. It's well balanced. It's put together very well. So for $9.79, so far out of all the whiskeys we've had, this might be my go-to bourbon here. So if you want something that's well balanced and rounded and leaning into the oak a little bit harder, Ezra Brooks 90. If you want something that's on the sweet side and kind of mimicking that Buffalo Trace or Four Roses florally, fruity note that you can get, check out the Ancient Age. And so far on the bourbons that I've done them in order of price. So at the very bottom of the barrel for price is the Evan Williams Green Label, and at $7 and what the heck was it? It was like $7.89 or something like that. Yeah, $7.89. And now we're at the high-end top shelf of the bottom shelf, Ezra Brooks 90 proof at $9.79. So a difference of $2. That'll be it for this episode. I feel like I'm kind of rambling at this point. So please like, subscribe, share, hit the notification bells, leave a comment, do all the YouTube things that you normally do. Please, as always, put in the comments what you're able to find these whiskeys for in your area. And if you like any of those tasting notes, definitely feel free to go out, pick them up, give them a try. If you don't like them, you can always use them as a mixer. And you know what? They're under $10, so you're not breaking the bank if you don't like it. So have yourselves a great day as always. Hope you and your loved ones are staying safe in this time of peril. And I'll catch you on the next episode. So thanks.